Right, so let's jump into the specifics here. Trudeau announced a 2-month break on the GST-HST for certain goods and services. It starts December 14th of this year and goes all the way through to February 15th, 2025. And on top of that, a lot of Canadians are going to get a one-time payment of $250.
Now, if you're not totally up on Canadian taxes, the GST-HST is basically a sales tax that's on most things you buy. So having a 2-month break on that, even if it's not for everything, could actually make a difference in people's budgets, especially around the holidays.
Oh, for sure. And speaking of the holidays, some of the things that are going to be included in this GST holiday are very much holiday-ish. We're talking Christmas trees, video game consoles, even restaurant meals.
Yeah, it seems like they're really trying to hit those categories where people tend to spend more during the holidays. Now, the government's saying this GST break is going to cost them about $1.6 billion. And to put that in perspective, that's like 0.3% of the entire federal budget for this year.
Whoa, okay, that is a lot of money. So what does that actually look like for, the average person?
Well, if you imagine a family spending about $2,000 on things that are eligible, during those 2 months, they could save about $100. Of course, that'll be more in provinces that have the HST, which is that combined federal and provincial sales tax.
Okay, so that is a pretty good chunk of savings, especially for families who are, feeling things right now. And then there's that $250 working Canadians rebate. Who exactly can get that?
So if you filed your taxes for 2023 and you made under $150,000, you'll be eligible. And get this, it's scheduled to be paid out in spring 2025.
Wait, spring 2025? Isn't that when a federal election could happen?
It is. And that's exactly why the timing of all this is raising eyebrows, Trudeau has had a bit of a rough go lately. He lost a couple of those recent by-elections, which are those special elections to fill empty spots in Parliament. And his approval ratings have been, well, slipping a bit.
So some people are seeing this as a strategic move, trying to win back some voters before an election. It's kind of like,
Yeah.
dangling a carrot.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a little pre-election bonus. But here's where things get really interesting. Trudeau has actually been pretty critical of using these government handouts to deal with affordability issues. He's even said in the past that this kind of thing could actually make inflation worse.
Yeah, I remember him saying something like that. So what's changed?
Well, he's saying that the situation is different now, that inflation has been cooling down, and the Bank of Canada just lowered interest rates. He's saying that creates an opportunity to give people some financial relief without the risk of inflation spiking again.
Okay, that makes sense. But some people are pointing out that this GST holiday ends in February, and then the carbon tax is going up in April. So is this really a break for Canadians? Or is it just a temporary thing before another cost jumps up?
That's the question, isn't it? And it brings us to the core of the issue here. Are these measures actually about helping Canadians? Or are they a political tactic to win over voters?
To get into that, let's look at how other political parties are reacting to this news. What are they saying about these tax breaks?
Well, the NDP, for example, they've said that they'll support the measures, but they're calling them a liberal letdown. They're saying the relief should be permanent.
Yeah.
And that it should include things like your monthly bills,
Yeah.
utilities and stuff.
So they're kind of trying to do both.
Yeah.
Support something that could help people.
Yeah.
But also criticize the Liberals for not doing enough.
Exactly. They want to show they're fighting for Canadians, but also show they're different from the Liberals. Then you've got the Bloc Québécois. They're not necessarily against giving people more money, but they're calling out Trudeau for potentially using these measures to sway voters,
Ah, so they're questioning if this is really an ethical way to use government money, especially this close to a potential election.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, we have the Conservatives. They are not holding back at all. They're calling this whole thing a 2-month temporary tax trick. And they say it's just a distraction from other economic problems, like the carbon tax.
Speaking of the carbon tax, could you give us a quick rundown of what that is and why the Conservatives are bringing it up now?
Sure. The carbon tax is basically a fee on fossil fuels, things like gas and natural gas. The idea is to make these fuels more expensive so people will use less and reduce their carbon footprint. And the money they get from the carbon tax goes back to Canadians through rebates.
So the Conservatives are saying that these tax breaks are basically canceling out the carbon tax, at least for now.
That's their argument. They've always been against the carbon tax, saying it puts too much pressure on Canadians. Without really addressing climate change, they see these new measures as the Liberals trying to soften the blow of the carbon tax going up.
Okay, so we're seeing a lot of different reactions here, from kind of cautious support to total disagreement.
Right. And for voters, it creates a real choice. Do they appreciate getting a little financial help? Or are they suspicious about why this is happening now?
I found this quote from Trudeau that I think gets to the heart of this. He said, and I'm quoting here, "It allows us to make sure that we are putting money in people's pockets in a way that is not going to stimulate inflation, but is going to help them make ends meet and continue our economic growth."
That statement really sums up the balancing act the government is trying to pull off here. They want to address affordability concerns, which are real for a lot of Canadians, but they don't want to start another inflation spiral.
It's like they're walking a tightrope,
Uh.
trying to find that sweet spot where they can help people without causing more problems down the line.
Exactly, and that's why looking at the potential economic impact of all this is really important.
Okay, so let's get into that. What are the potential pros and cons of these temporary tax breaks, economically speaking?
Well, on the plus side, these measures could encourage people to spend money, especially during the holidays. When people have a bit of extra cash, they're more likely to spend it, and that can boost the economy.
Yeah, that makes sense. People might be more likely to buy that new TV or go out for dinner if they know they're saving some money on the sales tax.
Exactly. But there's also the other side of things to think about. Some economists are saying that temporary tax breaks like this don't really have a long-term impact on the economy.
How come?
Well, people might just change when they buy things. So instead of buying something in March, they might wait until December when the tax break is happening.
Oh, I see. So it's not really creating new spending, just moving it around.
Right. And then there's the whole thing about inflation. If everyone starts spending more because of these measures, it could actually push prices up. And then the benefit of the tax break is gone.
It's a tough situation for sure. So with all this going on, how do we understand these tax breaks? Are they good, bad?
Yeah, that's the big question. And there's not really a simple answer. It depends on your perspective.